The modern world is unimaginable without the prevalence of the printed word. Papermaking and printing was developed during the Islamic Renaissance in the 8th century and spread to Europe during its Renaissance in the 14th. But the desire for new ideas and learning was limited by technological barriers. All printing was done manually, a laborious process producing only around 40 pages a day. German inventor Johann Gutenberg made a breakthrough in 1450. After years of experimentation, he finally completed a printing press which revolutionized printing. The first book he published in 1456 established the growing dominance of European society on the world stage, a 4th century Latin edition of the Bible. Within 40 years, Gutenberg's presses were built in Italy, France, England, and elsewhere. Ironically, one early printed pamphlet was written in defense of scribes whose livelihoods were threatened by the new technology. The press also had social and political effects, bringing books out of the church and into the universities. In 1476, merchant William Caxton established a printing press in England. In 1516, the scholar Erasmus published a version of the Bible based on the original Greek. It contradicted the Latin text propagated by the Catholic Church for its own narrow interests, such as receiving payment for delivering absolutions. The English chaplain William Tyndale smuggled 18,000 New Testament Bibles into England in the early 1500s, where they were prohibited by the establishment. All people caught distributing the book were burnt at the stake and the Bibles were destroyed. Tyndale himself was executed for heresy in 1536. But the printing press didn't completely take off until the English Civil War in the mid-17th century. The Levellers used printed publications to advocate radical democratic reform, and the Royalists to defend the established order. It was a heady fusion of technology, increasingly educated mass audiences, and a breakdown in censorship laws which enabled unofficial publications. The press was burgeoning in Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe, Russia, the Middle East, Africa and India, printing remained a small-scale specialist activity until the 1700s. Printing presses were built in the Islamic world in the late 1400s, but printing in Arabic and Turkish was prohibited. The Ottoman Empire was in a period of long-term decline, and its rulers feared the potentially radical impact that the printed word would have on society. But Turkish diplomat Ibrahim Mutafarrika was convinced that the only way to halt the decline of Ottoman rule was the widespread dissemination of the scientific ideas which underpinned the advancement of the Western powers. He persuaded the Ottoman Sultan to establish a state-run press in 1729. In 1775, political agitator Thomas Paine sold 500,000 copies of his pamphlet Common Sense, which advocated American independence, in a single year, a total of 24 million printed pages.
By machine or by hand.
To produce this amount in the past would have taken 100 presses 16 years. The first press in Africa was built in 1794 but was destroyed by French invaders. Throughout the colonial period, press freedoms were restricted and pro-European propaganda was spread to suppress national liberation movements. Printing output soared in the centuries that followed. The printing press became the primary communication technology of the modern era, variously used to inform or entertain, defend the interests of states and institutions, or to foment revolution. It remained unrivaled for 400 years until the advent of the Internet.